Hello and welcome. So today's video is going to be an exploration of the ideas and concepts of determinism and free will. And we're going to look at the philosophical and scientific perspectives that are floating around regarding this particular debate. Before we get into it, I would like to ask a huge favour. And that is, you do all the YouTubey things, like, subscribe, hit the bell notification thing, and share the video far and wide and that sort of thing. It helps me out enormously, but it also means that YouTube will show you more videos relating to philosophy and whatnot. Not just my videos. The YouTube algorithm is pretty good at figuring out that these two things are talking about, these two channels are talking about similar things and blah blah blah. So the benefit of liking, subscribing and all of that good stuff isn't just that you see more of my stuff, but you see videos of other people talking about these things as well. So now we've got that out of the way, let's get stuck in. So the debate between determinism and free will is one of the oldest and most enduring in all of philosophy. Determinism is the idea that all events, including human actions, are determined by prior causes, following an unbroken chain of causality. In this view, given the current state of the universe, only one future is possible. On the other hand, free will is the belief that individuals have the capacity to make choices that are not entirely determined by prior causes, allowing for personal autonomy and moral responsibility. Essentially, the idea of free will posits that as human beings, our decisions are somehow outside of the normal causal chain. So the relationship between these two concepts has been challenged and redefined by advances in science, particularly in physics and neuroscience. These developments have significantly impacted the philosophical landscape, leading to re-evaluations of how determinism and free will coexist, or whether one must give way to the other. Classical determinism has its roots in Newtonian mechanics, a branch of classical physics developed by possibly the smartest human being that ever lived, which is Sir Isaac Newton, in the 17th century. In this deterministic framework, the universe is viewed as a vast, predictable machine governed by strict laws of motion. Every event, from the movement of planets all the way down to human actions, can be traced back to prior causes. And if you knew the position and velocity of every particle at a given moment, you could predict the future with perfect accuracy. This view is often referred to as hard determinism. The belief that determinism is true and therefore free will does not exist. Under hard determinism, human actions are seen as the inevitable result of external factors like genetics, environment, and upbringing. And as a result, moral responsibility is undermined because individuals do not truly control their choices. Opposing this view is libertarianism, and this is not to be confused with political libertarianism. It's somewhat annoying that they both have the same name, but they are separate concepts. So libertarianism, metaphysical libertarianism to be precise, asserts that humans possess free will and that determinism is false, at least in the case of human actions. Libertarians argue that people can make genuine choices that are not, sort of dictated by prior causes or external conditions. This view preserves the notion of moral responsibility, asserting that individuals can be praised or blamed for their actions because they are not determined by factors beyond their control. However, libertarianism must explain how free will can exist if the universe operates in a deterministic way. And that's a big problem for the libertarians. The rise of quantum mechanics in the early 20th century introduced a significant challenge to classical determinism. Quantum mechanics is a branch of physics that deals with the behaviour of particles at the smallest scales, like electrons and protons, photons and so on. Unlike classical mechanics, quantum mechanics operates on principles of indeterminacy and probability. The Heisenberg uncertainty principle states that it is impossible to know both the position and the momentum of a particle with absolute precision at any one time. This principle reveals that at the quantum level the universe is not strictly deterministic. Instead, particles exhibit probabilistic behaviour, and certain events can be, or cannot be rather, predicted with certainty, only with probabilities. This indeterminacy suggests that the universe may not be entirely deterministic. Some philosophers have used quantum mechanics to argue against hard determinism, suggesting that if events at the quantum level are not determined, then not all events in the universe are governed by strict causal laws. This introduces the possibility that human choices could be free from determinism as well. However, this raises a new problem. If decisions are based on quantum indeterminacy, they might just be random rather than freely chosen. Libertarians must address this challenge by explaining how free will can exist in a universe that is either deterministic or governed by random events. So libertarianism is struggling at this point to sort of justify its position, I would say. So chaos theory is something that further complicates the deterministic picture. It's a branch of mathematics and physics that studies how small changes in initial conditions can lead to vastly different outcomes over time. This is often referred to as the butterfly effect. The idea that a butterfly flapping its wings in one part of the world could eventually cause a hurricane elsewhere. While chaos theory does not deny determinism, it highlights how unpredictable complex systems can be in practice. Even though chaotic systems are deterministic, meaning they follow specific laws, their behaviour is so sensitive to initial conditions that predicting long-term outcomes becomes practically impossible. This challenges the hard determinist claim that all events are predictable and opens up the question of how much determinism matters if we cannot foresee outcomes. Compatibilism is a philosophical stance that seeks to essentially reconcile free will with determinism. Compatibilists argue that even if the universe is deterministic, free will can still exist in a meaningful way. For compatibilists, free will is not about escaping causality, but about acting in accordance with your desires, intentions, and motivations. If a person acts based on their internal reasons and is not coerced or forced, they are acting freely, even if those reasons themselves are determined by prior causes. Compatibilism preserves the concept of moral responsibility by asserting that individuals can still be held accountable for their actions, even in a determined world. As long as a person's actions are the result of their desires and reasoning and not the result of external coercion, they are responsible for those actions. This view has remained resilient even in the face of scientific discoveries like quantum mechanics and chaos theory. Compatibilists argue that free will, understood as acting according to your desires, does not require the ability to do otherwise or the absence of causal determinism. Recent findings in neuroscience have added a new dimension to the debate over free will and determinism. Studies such as those conducted by neuroscientist Benjamin Libet in the 1980s have shown that brain activity related to decision making occurs before individuals become consciously aware of their decisions. Libet's experiments revealed that the brain initiates actions milliseconds before the individual consciously decides to act, suggesting that unconscious processes play a significant role in human decision making. These findings challenge traditional notions of free will. If decisions are made by unconscious brain processes before a person becomes aware of them, it raises the question of whether people are truly in control of their actions. Some philosophers interpret this as evidence that free will is an illusion, while others argue that consciousness still plays a meaningful role in shaping our actions, even if unconscious processes influence them. This debate has led to a re-examination of the concept of free will, with some philosophers suggesting that free will might involve a complex interaction between unconscious and conscious processes. The implications of scientific discoveries for moral responsibility are actually quite significant. If free will is limited or non-existent, then or if human actions are largely determined by unconscious processes, can individuals still be held morally accountable for their actions? Some philosophers, particularly those who adhere to consequentialist ethics, argue that moral responsibility can still be upheld based on practical considerations. Consequentialists, I struggled to say that word, focus on the outcomes of actions and their effects on society rather than the metaphysical question of whether individuals have free will. From this perspective, holding people accountable for their actions is necessary to maintain social order, prevent harm, and encourage rehabilitation. Other philosophers suggest that the findings in neuroscience and quantum mechanics call for a more compassionate and nuanced understanding of human behaviour. If our actions are influenced by factors beyond our control, such as unconscious brain processes or indeterministic quantum events, that was a mouthful, moral responsibility might need to be reinterpreted. Rather than focusing solely on punishment, this view emphasizes the understanding This view emphasizes understanding the causes of behavior and addressing them in a way that promotes personal growth and societal well-being. The philosophical debate over determinism and free will has evolved significantly in light of scientific advancements. Classical determinism, rooted in Newtonian physics, once provided a clear-cut case for hard determinism, asserting that all events are predetermined by prior causes. However, the rise of quantum mechanics and chaos theory has introduced indeterminacy and unpredictability, challenging the idea that the universe operates in a strictly deterministic manner. At the same time, neuroscience has raised questions about the extent of conscious control over human actions, suggesting that unconscious processes play a crucial and not insignificant role in decision-making. Despite these challenges, compatibilism remains a viable philosophical stance, in my opinion at least, arguing that free will and determinism can coexist. Libertarianism, on the other hand, faces the difficult, if not impossible, task of explaining how free will can exist in a universe that may either be deterministic or governed by random events. Ultimately, the interplay between determinism, free will, and scientific discovery continues to inspire deep philosophical reflection, pushing us to reconsider the nature of human agency, autonomy, and moral responsibility as our understanding of the universe and the human mind grows. The question of whether we are truly free or bound by prior causes remains open and compelling. So that is the landscape, as it were. That is the lay of the land. And as you can see, or as we have sort of discussed, there is no definitive answer to the question of determinism and free will. So it is a debate and a discussion that is going to continue, and it might continue forever. It might be a question that has no end point. But I do think even if that is the case, I do think it is a question that leads to other much more specific questions. So It's a viable, mode of thought, in my opinion. But it is an incredibly interesting topic, and I think everybody has their own sort of idea about free will. And I think, to some extent, we have, whether free will itself is real or an illusion, we have an innate feeling of being free. And that in itself is important, regardless of whether it's true freedom or we are, living with an illusion. The fact that we feel that way is important to us in determining how we behave and like as individuals and also as a society. So it's something that everybody can have input on, I think. So on that note, I want you, the person, possibly the only person to watch this video, we shall see, to jump in the comments and give me your perspective. What do you think? Is the universe deterministic, or is it random? Do we have free will, or do we just have an illusion of free will? And do we have moral responsibility? So jump in the comments, give me your perspective, and I look forward to engaging with you and responding to those comments. So let's get the discussion going. But in the meantime, thank you for watching. And as I said at the beginning of the video, do all the YouTubey things like subscribe and so on and so forth. That would be really, really appreciated. So I hope you found it interesting. I hope you learned something today. And more importantly, I hope that this has instigated some deep thought in you. And I look forward to seeing your responses. So have a great day, and I'll see you on the next one.